Why is everyone talking about it as if we're all living in a level playing field?
Yeah.
As if we all have the same starting line in life, and then we all just need to just work hard, and then we'll all become Mark Zuckerbergs, Richard Bransons, and Bill Gates. It's just ridiculous. That's not how life works. It's not just about hard work and effort. It's about finding and leveraging unfair advantages to succeed.
Hi, and welcome to At Work With. I'm your host, Anna Merchant. On this podcast, I explore the real stories behind people's careers, and each episode is designed to leave you with at least one honest insight you can carry into your work and your life. Today, I'm joined by Hasan Kubba, entrepreneur and best-selling author of The Unfair Advantage. His journey spans dropping out of a conventional path, building businesses, and learning to think differently about success. We talk about non-linear careers, redefining success, and why you can't take all the credit for your wins or all the blames for your losses. This is At Work With Hasan Kubba. Hasan, welcome to At Work With.
Thanks for having me.
We're only a couple of years later. I think I messaged you 2 years ago when I was doing audio, and you missed the message. And ironically, you messaged me just when I was about to start video.
Nice.
So it's all worked really well.
Yeah.
So before we start and talk about your brilliant book and what you do, I'd love to start from the beginning. So what do you remember the most about your formative years? And what were you like as a kid?
I was shy. I was quiet. I still sometimes feel that way, by the way. Like, people see me speaking on stage or doing presentations or going on podcasts, but I still have that kind of introverted side to me. I think, alhamdulillah, I had a happy childhood and everything was good, straightforward. Just kind of the usual angst around like being a teenager. The main thing that I remember, if I kind of jump ahead a little bit, is like the struggle for me was figuring out the career path. Didn't know what I wanted to do after school, after university. There wasn't like good careers guidance at like college or university. That's where I was like, well, what do I do? I'm good at science, but like, does that mean I'd be a doctor? So I was starting down the doctor path, but then dropped out of that. So yeah, it's that kind of comes to mind immediately when you say, what do you remember? But
I wanted to go a little bit back.
Sure.
Yeah. I wanted to go about talking about, so you obviously came here from Iraq.
Yes.
During the second war.
Yeah.
And what, obviously you came when you were 3 years old. So I can imagine that, you don't have that much memory of that time. But as you grew up in this culture, like what was the almost perceptions of success being in the Western world, but also growing up in a Iraqi kind of environment and your Middle Eastern roots?
Yeah, it was just my family quite academic in their thinking, in the sense of like, get degrees, get qualifications, go down the conventional paths. There wasn't really any pressure to become a doctor, any direct. I think it was implicit. It was like a thing.
You spoke about the doctor cake for your second birthday?
Apparently my grandfather got me a doctor cake. Like, he's going to grow up to be a doctor. I think it was weirdly half birthday cake.
Yeah.
It was like an implicit thing. So yeah, success was sort of like just a regular path, getting a good job, getting degrees and qualifications. That is kind of what was instilled into me. But I just felt like I just had no context. And I'm also the eldest of my cousins and stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't have like older cousins and people to mentor me. I just had like the parents' generation who were new.
They were just trying to do the best that they could as well.
Exactly. Right? So that's kind of how I think of.
So you did end up in university, you did economics.
Yeah.
At what point in that journey, you completed your degree, at what point in that journey did you think that this vocation is not for me and actually I can't do this and I want to do something different?
Economics is funny because economics, like, what do you become after?
The banking.
Yeah, exactly. But like there is a job. It's called economist, to be an economist.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's just more uni.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like research and papers.
It's research, right?
Yeah. Which is just so boring to me.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what? Like, economist?
No offense.
Yeah. So for me, it was very much like, it was considering banking and finance, because when you're ambitious in London is a sort of a finance city, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it did not appeal to me. They used to come to university and be like, wow, we're in investment banking. Like, it's like they were new graduates. But at the time when you're in uni, you think they're so big.
Wow.
Yeah, they were like literally graduates.
Well, yeah.
And they'll like brag about being in the office 72 hours straight. And I'm like, why is that to brag about? Like, it was so unappealing to me in the sense of like, okay, yeah, work hard, play hard. They party hard. And like, there's all these insinuations of like getting up to bad behavior and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, or like client dinners and steaks and wine. I'm like, well, that's not going to work for me. So genuinely, that was what like put me off, because I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And it didn't appeal to me. It was like helping rich people get richer and living for the weekend kind of life, and just working really long hours. I just did not want to do that.
So Can you walk me through? So you've graduated from economics.
Yeah.
What part did you go into before we got to, you call yourself an unnatural entrepreneur? Before we get to that part, what's the middle of
Well,
that
the
story?
middle is that I was like, whoa, I finished uni. I got the 2-1 because basically I
Tick
was, I
your
got the tick.
parents.
Yeah. So for me, I was good at school because I would do well without doing my homework. I would not study. I wouldn't.
That's like when I find people like that so annoying. I'm sorry. I was like, how do you do that? I
But the
studied
problem-
so hard and I just about passed. And people like you, like my husband, my husband would not study and he'd still come out with A's. I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah. I think we're good at picking, well, I'm not sure about him, but for me, it was good at picking it up in the first place.
Yeah.
So if I'm in the classroom, I'll just pick it up or I'll just read the textbook. Like I remember being set homework.
Yeah.
And then I'd read the pages on the textbook. There's like a 2-page spread. And then it gets to the exercises. And then when it's time to get to the exercises and do the homework, I'll be like, and I'll just turn the page and keep reading because that's just too much effort. So I think I used to just have an actual curiosity about it. And I think that's what worked for me. But so I think I was above average in being a bit smart. Problem is that I wasn't that smart to be able to do well at uni without studying either. So university is when it really it was not good enough. Especially I didn't turn up to my lectures. So I was the type that needed somebody to be breathing down my neck because I wasn't self-motivated to be I was just kind of trying to get through. I struggled at uni in the sense that I wasn't studying and then I had to repeat my first year because I did so
what
bad
was
in the
that
exams.
like at home, that conversation?
Yeah, not good. It was not good, honestly.
Oh, wow.
So that's why for me, when I graduated, I was like, oh my God, I got a 2-1.
Yeah.
Just everyone leave me alone.
Yeah.
I didn't have the guidance. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I came across this online course.
Yeah.
And it was inspired by the 4-hour work week.
Oh, yes.
So it was how do I make passive income? How do I make money? And so I took this course. It was $2,000, which, this is way back. I'm a bit older. So this is 2012. But anyway, I took this course. I was like, okay, great. He taught me how to start an online business and it's a genuine way of making money. It's not some scammy thing. It's like really setting up a business, adding value to local businesses or consulting people or doing services. And then figuring out how to automate it or offer services that can be delegated to a team so I don't have to be involved in the day-to-day. That was the idea. It was really hard. It took me, first of all, I spent a year and a half trying to launch and then just being too scared to launch. I didn't know. If you talked to me at the time, I'd be like, oh, I'm just not ready.
Yeah.
But really looking back, it was fear.
Yeah.
It was fear, perfectionism, procrastination. It was all these kinds of things holding me back. It was anxiety. But I didn't know at the time. At the time, I'm like, yeah, but my website's not ready. So later on, I did launch without the website. It didn't matter. But in the meantime, my parents are like, okay, Hasan, what are you doing?
Yeah,
So
that was going to be my next question. What was that pressure like at home? Because, we come from similar environments.
Yeah. They were like, what are you doing?
6 months,
You said
9
you're going to start a
months,
business. Where's the business? And I'm like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
And so I actually decided to get some jobs in sales, specifically in sales, because I knew sales is what you need to get going and get your first clients. So I did 2 months at one job, 2 months at another job in the city, by the way. So I did end up in the city for 2 months here, 2 months there.
Yeah.
Quit, had the fire lit under me to be like, okay, I hate having a boss. I need to do this now for real.
Yeah.
So I did. This was about early 2014. I started my business. About 2 years later, a year and a half, 2 years later, and it wasn't huge money. It was enough to get by, enough to start to have a little bit of savings. It was amazing. So for me, I was traveling around Southeast Asia, etc. So I got there in the end, but I really struggled. I had so much fear, anxiety, imposter syndrome, not feeling like a natural entrepreneur. I still don't feel, I wrote that in the book. I'm not a natural entrepreneur, but I got there in the end. So that's the great thing.
What do you think that people misunderstand the most about that journey? Because a lot of the times we see the end result, but we don't see, it's almost like the tip of the iceberg, right? You see the tip, you don't see all the work, all the graft and all the difficulties that someone has to get there.
Yeah. So for me, it was getting the business to a point where it was making passive income. Basically, I started off with just doing websites and the idea was you do a full package thing and then you can try and learn to figure out what to automate and what to offer. And I was like, I did the website thing and I'm like, wait, I'm going to have to keep getting new clients. This doesn't work. I can't automate that. Figured out it was a specific service, SEO, which I could charge monthly for and genuinely deliver amazing results. But being able to get the team members in place, the right hires to be able to do that was so hard. I had to hire, fire, figure it out myself, try and understand it. So there was a lot, and getting anxiety, I'm going to lose my clients, stuff like that. There was a lot of difficulty to get to that
You were
point.
quite young at that time as well, right?
Yeah.
No kind of guardrails and no support.
Yeah.
Well, so, and then also trying to like manage people and hire people and stuff at that age.
It was hard. It wasn't easy. I didn't have any mentors in business. That's the thing. I got to that point and then I was like, okay, what's next? And then kind of, I wish I'd pushed more and wanted more growth, but the idea always wasn't to have a big agency. It was like, or a big consultancy.
Yeah.
The idea was, how do I figure out how to do this marketing stuff for clients so I can then apply it to myself? So I was doing strategy and marketing. By doing that, I figured out I love the communication part of it and the strategy part of it. And that's over time what I figured out.
Your journey.
Looking back, you can connect the dots, right? You know that famous quote?
I can see that.
Yeah.
You get to the, the 2-year mark where you've started to make income and some passive income from it. When did you start thinking of yourself as like a writer or, a book author? Like, where did that spark come before we go into obviously the details?
My book was out. It was published, traditionally published in bookstores.
Yeah.
And like, you could talk to me 6 months after that and I'll still be like, I'm not a writer. I'm not an author. Genuinely. No, I really did not identify with that word.
Yeah.
So I never had it in
It's like your brain's almost catching up.
Yeah, it genuinely took me a long time to catch up to it. So I never thought of myself as that.
Yeah.
I thought...
Or maybe a thinker, like how maybe you were a thinker, thought leader, that kind of just put words into a book and then published it.
I'll tell you how it started. It started because the first version of my, the same consultancy that I started, the same business, my initial target clients actually was experts and authors. So it was always there in the back of my mind. It's weird how it came back around to it. So it didn't quite work at first because the type of clients I got in touch with didn't have the budgets. And then I started working with local businesses. So it was always there in my mind that I love this space. Then I met Ash Ali, my co-author, because we met some kind of business networking thing. We met each other. We were both from Northwest London. That's the serendipity. We're both he's from Edgware. I'm from Kingsbury area. It's like a 10-minute drive. And he's like, oh, let's hang out. People are pitching me now for investing. Oh, just come. And so I ended up, we became friends, but I became an investment partner with him. And it was like a Dragon's Den style, people pitching us. And eventually he started working on a book because he was like, oh, a lot of people say you should write a book. That the stuff we learned from the investing became the book concept. And I slowly started getting more and more involved in the book until I became a co-author of the book. And then eventually wrote the book. So that's kind of how it came together.
You talk about how, and I've seen this as well, so I don't really read a lot of business books. I've started to in the last couple of years. But they do tend to have a lot of the same narrative, like work hard, graft, and you've just got to put the hours in, hustle culture. So you and Ash have come obviously in this book and said it's not always that, right? That's not always the methodology to follow. So what made writing Unfair Advantage so different? Why did you kind of veer off the typical business book formula that worked?
I mean, that's what triggered us to write the book, is the fact that we're like, why is no one talking about this? Yeah. It's all like this American, go get them, anyone can do it, yay. Just like, you have to be determined enough. And if you wake up early, it's literally like very much like anyone can do it. Like, it's great. Look, I love this kind of empowering kind of self-improvement, self-development kind of mindset. But I think like there's huge gaps and blind spots in this kind of weird way of looking at the world, which can be empowering. And I think if you had to choose one, I would choose it. If you had to pick either like a completely fatalistic, oh, it's all luck, versus like I have agency and I can make it happen. Yeah. Of course, I would pick the agency one. Yeah. But the reality is it can have a dark side, because then when you try for a few years or a decade or whatever, and you don't have the outcomes, then you blame yourself. That's quite toxic to your own mindset, because there's a lot of factors outside of your control that determine whether or not you become successful as well as the factors within your control. Yeah. And so that frustration that we had, because we would see like, I grew up here in London, not from like a privileged background. I grew up kind of like on free school meals and state school. And so I would see people from those similar kinds of backgrounds, and they'd be like trying to raise money for their startup, let's say. And I'm like, okay, well, who do you know in terms of investors? Do you have a technical co-founder? Do you have the technical knowledge to code for your startup? And they're like, no. And it's like, well, I mean, I know you're working hard, but this is going to be hard. Like maybe this isn't, you don't have the unfair advantages necessary. Yeah. And that's kind of the language we started using for it. And it became the book, became like, okay, we have to have an honest look at ourselves and what assets we have going for us, what unfair advantages we have. So basically the concept, not just about hard work and effort, it's about finding and leveraging unfair advantages to succeed. And there's many different categories of unfair advantages. And we developed the Miles framework. MILES, to break the different categories down so you could audit yourself and be like, okay, well, what do I have going for me?
Yeah. So when we go into the Miles framework, if you could just talk us through the framework and maybe give like 1 or 2 examples. Because I mean, I love that framework. And when I was reading through it in the book, I was like, oh yeah, I've got this, but I don't have this, but I think I've got this. And when I'm thinking about my podcast and, you know, how I want to grow it and what I want to do to it. But yeah, if you just, because very high level for someone who doesn't know about the framework.
Yeah. So MILES is an acronym and it stands for M is for money. Money is like what resources do you have at your disposal? It's not just money you have in your account. It also is having the bank of mom and dad, the rich uncle, the network you could tap into. So it's also a little bit of that as well. It's the money that you can raise. It's the money you have and that you can raise. Within jobs, you can also start to apply this more for people in companies. It's also your means. This is something that's not really covered in the book, but I've realized that this is how people are applying it already. It's like, what kind of resources do you have at your disposal within your team, within your role? I is for intelligence and insight. Intelligence is not just about IQ and book smarts. It's also about like emotional intelligence and people skills and creativity, but it's also about insight. It's what unique insights do you have into the issues that people are facing? What problems are people facing? Where are the friction points?
It's also insight in yourself as well.
In yourself.
What you can and can't do, which I feel like, I mean, you know, I feel like people don't realize, and it's something that's taken me a long time to learn, is that really understand what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are. I think insight is such a, like, it should have its own pillar, I feel.
Yeah. Insight is very powerful. And I think the self-awareness, the self-knowledge, the know thyself is like the main theme of the book, actually. The main theme of the Miles framework is like know thyself.
So you like the whole foundation of it almost.
Exactly. So that's why when you say insight, it's absolutely, it works on that meta level of knowing, having insight on yourself. But yeah, like in terms of if you start a business or side hustle or project or something, or even just like doing better at your job, is having the insight into where the problems are that you can solve. It's kind of like the business idea. So that one works well for idea. L is for location and luck, which is right place, right time. That one's very powerful. And anyone who with an ounce of self-awareness who's successful knows that is partly because they were in the right place at the right time.
It's like you and Ash meeting at that dinner that, you know,
example.
Like if you didn't go, he didn't go, you wouldn't have met, and then there would have been this brilliant.
Imagine the butterfly effects of like all the different decisions. And 100%. E is for education and expertise. I think there was like a bit of a trend of like, oh, you don't need to go to university. You could just start a business, or you could drop out. Everyone was a dropout. Everyone was like, you know, Richard Branson didn't go to university. And it's like, but like education is also really powerful. And like the people who you're talking about who dropped out, like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, they were at Harvard. So they had, you know, like they're not just, you know, it's not just.
And they also had the money element of it, or the network element of it, which people don't talk about as well, right? 100%. So they weren't like kids going for free school meals, getting a scholarship into Harvard and then dropping out. They were quite established families that, you know, they drop out, but they've got a safety net.
They have, exactly. They have other unfair advantages in their favor. So 100%. Then so education and then expertise is, just as an example, Google's like one of the most successful, biggest companies in the world. That started from a PhD thesis at Stanford. So they were very much academics. Expertise is like learning through experience, learning through doing, learning through self-education. Very, very important, especially with the new skills, with AI, with things like that. You have to always be leveling up to build your expertise. And then S is the most powerful of them all, is for status. Status is extremely powerful. It's probably the most powerful one. It's socioeconomic status. It's what kind of subculture you're part of. It's your status as a man or a woman, or as part of an ethnic minority, or as part of any kind of subculture. It's your appearance, it's your height, it's your accent, it's your passport. All of that status. It's who you know as well. It's your network. And there's also your inner status, is how your confidence and your self-esteem, how you view yourself. So your external status is how others view you. And your inner status is how you view yourself.
But you have the basis of the Miles framework is mind.
Exactly.
And really it's one of those, it's such a cliche, but it's like you fake it till you make it, right? If you bet on yourself, then others will bet on you. It's just how you show yourself.
Oh, absolutely,
I think in the book I was reading, people kind of buy into the perceived value or perceived perception of what they think someone is before.
Of course.
You had a really good quote and then I can't remember, but it was a really good way of explaining that, you know, it's what you show out to the world, right? But one of the things I think might trip people up when they look at this framework, and, you know, you explained it very well, is that someone might look at that and say, I don't have any of that. How would you advise that person then? Where do they start? Like, what's the step for someone? Step for someone.
So the key thing to know about that, it's a really good question. It's like, and this was the key when we were writing it. We were really like thinking, okay, hold on. We don't want to create limiting beliefs for people. And, you know, well, the good news is this privilege isn't purely a privilege. You know what I mean? So where you have a disadvantage can be turned into an advantage. Essentially, they're double-edged swords. So the best example I can give, and the most like straightforward example, is having access to money. So we would see founders, for example, who have access to a lot of money, a lot of resources. And then we ask them, okay, so how are you going to market? How are you going to spread the word for your app or your software or whatever it is, your product? And they'll be like, oh yeah, Google and Facebook ads, because why? They have money. So they just want to throw money at the problem. And that means you have less creativity, less resourcefulness, and vice versa. When you have less money, you're more creative, you're more resourceful. You think outside the box. That really helps. That really helps. It's the same with, wanting to prove yourself, like having a chip on the shoulder, coming from a lower status background, you want to prove yourself. For some people, that can really drive them. For others, that can hold them back. So the mindset is the key, whether you can turn a disadvantage into an advantage, to use it in your favor.
So if there's someone that's listening right now and they say, okay, look, let me look at this framework and see, how I make it work. What's the first practical step they should take? And if we take a case study of, someone's just come out of university, similar experience to yours, where, they've done a vacation that they didn't really want to do, or they didn't really have the guidance, where do they start?
Self-awareness. So you start by just reflecting. It could be asking, friends, family, people you've traveled with, people you've lived with, people you've worked with, people you've done projects with, especially like working or traveling with. You get an insight into the personality. So you can get some feedback about yourself. Like, what are you good at?
Yeah.
What do you enjoy? What comes easy to you that is difficult for others? These are part of the internal, like, unfair advantages. And then your external unfair advantages is like who you know, what kind of privileges you have, what kind of money can you tap into, the kind of external things. And you just need to have a good hard look at that. At the end of every chapter there, you have a list of questions that you can ask yourself. And really, it's a case of self-reflection. It even starts from personality. Personality typing is quite a very approximate science, but it doesn't matter, because the point isn't the results of the personality tests that you take. It's asking yourself, wait, what am I? What do I prefer? Am I kind of like more of a planner? Am I more structured? Or am I more spontaneous? Am I more of an introvert or am I more of an extrovert? And I think it's really valuable to kind of reflect on yourself and not to stay at that point. You have to move on from that point. But just at one point, just to think, what am I good at? And to double down on that, not to focus on where you're weaker. For personal development, yeah, sure, you focus on where you're weaker for your relationships, for your family life, etc., for your spiritual life. But for work, for business, for career, focus on where you're strong and double down on that. Try and pick roles where you're already strong, where it comes more naturally. You shouldn't go against the grain, and you should go with what's already going for you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So a big part of your work is, you help people become published authors. You talk about how people can get book deals. You've had people get book deals without social media followings, without a big presence. So for someone listening right now, say they have an idea and they say, okay, I want to write a book. I've got an idea, but I have no following on any platform except like my friends and family. Where would you start with that?
So yeah, we didn't have a following.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, as in,
yeah.
How did that work?
So this is something that I've lived and breathed. It's that I didn't
experience.
It was literally friends and family. It wasn't. I didn't have a following online. Neither did Ash. And the key was we had a good book concept. So having a following is like the hack. It's the unfair advantage to getting a book deal. But this is, by the way, when we say book deal, it means from a traditional publisher. That means one of the big 5 publishers, whether that's Penguin Random House or HarperCollins or Hachette or one of these big names publishers.
So what was your and Ash's unfair advantage then? Because that's the question, right? Because you didn't have a following.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's concept. I mean, this is like less of an
it's
expertise. It's insight.
Yeah.
To go back to your point about insight.
Yeah.
I would say it's insight that, wait, there's this gap in the market. Why is no one talking about this? Why is everyone talking about it as if we're all living in a level playing field? As if we all have the same starting line in life, and then we all just need to just work hard, and then we'll all become Mark Zuckerberg's, Richard Branson's, and Bill Gates. It's just ridiculous. That's not how life works. And somebody needs to just point that out. And so we were, from what I've seen, one of the first business books to even talk about luck and serendipity and privilege, but not in a disempowering sense, but in the sense of like, actually, you can find your own level of success, but you have to define it for yourself. That was the key. So for us, it was about concept. So that's what I teach. So what I teach in terms of this, my love of communication and messaging, it's about the message. What's the message behind your book? You can't be like, okay, well, I just want to write a book about my experience. I've had a lot of success in my life. I want to give some advice. I'm like, okay, just what are you going to write? My advice. Who's going to buy it? No one knows who you are.
It's a bit harsh. But it's true. That's how someone would come to you, right?
It's like people wanting to write a biography and then thinking that's going to do well.
Yeah.
Yeah, why would people be interested in reading about your life? This isn't aimed at you.
No,
As you
no,
said,
it's
a bit
true. No,
harsh,
but I get it.
it's true,
No, but
right?
I'm trying to think if I was on the
Same
other
with me.
end and like I was asking, but it's the right advice. Like that's the question that people ask. And why would someone then want to read about me?
A great way to think about this is TED Talks is an idea worth spreading. And so for your book, you have to have an idea worth spreading. So I often say to people, and Ash and I did this. We gave TEDx talks and we both went through that experience while coming up with our book idea.
Yeah.
So when people ask, and this is a classic question, is, okay, how long did it take to write your book? And I go, well, it's either 4 years or 4 months. I'm not sure which one to reply because the actual writing is 4 months. But the coming up with the concept and thinking about it and refining it and getting feedback on it, etc., was about 3 to 4 years.
Wow.
And it can be faster than that. I'm on.
Yes.
But the point is that most of the work is in refining what you want to say. The actual writing is not the hard bit. And now it's especially not the hard bit with AI, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And of course, if you purely rely on AI, it's going to be rubbish. It's going to be bad book. But not just because the writing style is bad, but because there's no good concept behind it. There's nothing, there's no fresh framing. So the key is to have a unique, compelling, refreshing concept. And so an example is the unfair advantage concept. But I've done the same for clients like Ali Abdal, the YouTuber, who's one of my big book success stories, the author success stories. Is I took him through the whole process of how to get a literary agent, how to approach publishers, how to write a book proposal, how to come up with a book idea. Those are the highest leverage decisions to make in the journey. And so his concept is feel good productivity. So just to give that to you in a nutshell, it's not about effort and discipline and willpower and gritting your teeth. It's about making it fun. Feel good productivity, make it fun, feel good. It's nice. It's quite simple. But how do you get to that simple point? You go through a lot of work, and it's so much work. It's a creative work to go from a rough, vague idea that's kind of simple or overly simple and is very vague to something that's really complicated and really, you can't even communicate it, to something that you can communicate.
Find like a middle ground with most, right?
Where it's like you go back to simplicity.
Yeah.
You start at simplicity, but it's very fuzzy and very uncompelling.
Yeah.
And you go to complexity, and then you go all the way back around to simplicity again. And that process is a process of refining and developing a book concept.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just for book. It applies to business ideas. It applies to restaurant ideas. It applies to a brand.
Yeah.
It applies to any project you want to do.
Incredibly interesting. And as we kind of move into the book piece, one of the things I loved in this book was the reality growth mindset. And I think that really resonated with me because it gives a more nuanced approach to what you're trying to actually talk about. That no, you can't go and win like the World Cup. Then you also don't need to just not do anything with your life. So I wanted to go on to an analogy, and you've used such brilliant analogies in your books and in your podcast and stuff as well. You talk about the map is in the territory, and that frameworks can only guide you, but they can't give you the direction and real life. So what experiences did you have that you came up with something like that? Can you come to like one experience, one moment where you kind of thought of this as an analogy? Because
it's a great question. Great question, Anna, because no one's ever asked me that question before. So I really enjoy answering that. It comes back full circle to when I was making fun of economics. It really does. So I think economics as a practical application, whether controversial take or whatever, but I think it's pretty useless. Genuinely, I don't think it's useful. As a practical application, I don't think they know what they're talking about. I don't think that those projections that they forecast are accurate in any way. They can't predict downturns. They can't, like, it's just like, it's all just a bunch of noise. I'm pretty much with Nassim Taleb on this. Nassim Taleb makes fun of economists. I'm pretty much on board. And I was from the beginning when I was studying economics. I was like, these people clearly don't know what they're talking about. And it's not their fault. It's because it's such a complex system. It's so complicated. An economy is such a complex system. And it's the same, actually, if you go into the human body, your husband's a doctor.
Yeah.
They don't know a lot of things about the human body. Like a lot of things. Like if you really get to, you realize, oh my God, there's so little that they know. And it's not that they know, that we as human beings.
Representation of them. Yeah, absolutely.
It's us as human beings know. There's so much limit to the complicated systems. So what do they do in economics? And probably in every discipline, but even more clearly in economics is they model. It's called models. So a model is a way to try to simulate reality and make some underlying assumptions that everyone knows is wrong. You try to make those assumptions anyway because you need to create something so that you can have a model to play with. And so in economics, you'll assume silly things like human beings are rational actors, until behavioral economics came into play, etc. That was classical economics, that everybody's a rational actor and they will do things to maximize their utility, which is their usefulness or happiness or whatever. And it's complete nonsense. It's very interesting to talk about. So a map.
That's a very good example.
Yeah, so the map is not the territory. It comes from neurolinguistic programming, which I never
Yeah.
studied, but I just came across.
Yeah.
But I love the concepts behind it, which is that, look, it's this idea of, I think there's a Bruce Lee quote where he says, it's quite esoteric, but there's a finger pointing to the moon. Don't look at the finger. Look at what it's pointing to, meaning that. And that is a deeper conversation. And we can go to philosophy of this. And I've never studied philosophy. It's just something that's interesting to me, is that words are just labels. They're just fingers pointing to the thing. So whenever we're using language to communicate, we have to simplify. And there's going to be a loss of information there. And so it's never going to be, the map is not the territory, because imagine if you try to create a map that is 100% accurate, then it's not useful because it'll be the size of the world.
Yeah.
It's not a useful map because it's too complex. So the map has to simplify things. So that's the same in terms of like our mental models for success, our mental models for like, how do I succeed? How do you come up with a book concept? A book concept is creating a mental model.
Yeah.
It's creating a message. But if you go deeper into the philosophy, it's creating a mental model. And I think that's the key thing, is to realize there's a limit to every system. Personality typing, there's a complete limits to that. But look what's underneath it. The self-awareness that it takes, the questioning yourself that it takes.
Yeah.
That's the key. And it's about what's useful. That's the final thing to finish off on the modeling. Is it useful? Not is it accurate, but does it help me to get results?
Yeah.
That's the key distinction. So if these success models help you to get results in your life, then it's useful.
Yeah. And then staying on that kind of analogy side of things, you talk about Flight Club being one of your favorite films.
Yeah.
And one of those, so I did watch it when it first came out, but I think I watched a little bit of it and it's too violent for me.
But by the way, it was not a favorite film. Like, I remember being depressed
I
watching
think
that.
said that, you loved the idea and the quote. And I remember this quote, we buy things we don't need to impress people we don't even like. I love that quote. And I remember it from the movie. How does that connect to what you teach about status now to your clients or, to students? I mean, you give lectures.
This comes back to this is why I didn't want a corporate job or the high flying. I was inspired by films. It's not even,
it's not the films, but it's like
it's the philosophy.
What you get from it, right? Like you just said, right? If I can get something from it
exactly,
and develop it and make it my own.
Exactly.
So
it was two films. It was Fight Club and Office Space.
Yeah.
Office Space is a comedy. And it's not even like an amazing film, but it's quite funny. And the point is, for Office Space was all about like getting stuck in the cubicle where you have this boss and it's like you feel like and there's some books that have come out recently about like one called BS Jobs, for example. And it's about how like, what do these jobs even mean? And it's like this idea of like this feeling of meaninglessness, this kind of like this lack of purpose in the job. That's number one. And then number two is the Fight Club thing where you're like, essentially it's this idea of consumerism or materialism, trying to impress people or trying to keep up with the Joneses. And so in the book, how that comes across is not so much in the status space, which obviously is related, but it's in how do you define success for yourself? Don't let others define success for you. Don't let the magazines tell you, oh, you need to be dressed like this. Oh, this is the trend. Oh, this is what impresses people. Oh, this is the new thing. You have to try to step back from that current, which we're all swimming in, and try to define success for yourself based on your own values that really align with your soul or with your conscience or with your gut, whatever language you want to use, where you can be like more in touch with your real self rather than the superficial self that's trying to play status games. I think that's the key.
So you spoke about your father. He studied in Iraq and then he came here and he studied, and you used it's very interesting that you spoke about this because a lot of people don't talk about this, but he then was doing relatively well here in a job, but he struggled to get promoted because of his accent. And I found that story so valuable because it's so important for people to see that, successful people like Hasan as well have a lot of lived experiences because of their backgrounds. What do you think in your formative years, witnessing that, taught you about unfair advantage?
Yeah, I don't even think it was his accent mainly. Accent played a role. It was because he didn't drink.
Oh.
So being a Muslim man, he didn't go to the pub.
So he lost
after
a lot
work.
of the network.
And so a lot of stuff happened, and especially back then, and we're talking about 20, 25, 25 years.
Yeah.
Wow, time flies.
And, we're not that young, Hasan.
I know. So that's the thing. That's something that's gotten a bit better now. That's something that's improved.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
so that's but that was a genuine barrier in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. That was a genuine barrier. That was like, he couldn't really go into management because he didn't go to the pub afterwards.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
That was it.
Yeah.
And do you think that played a role in how you viewed?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you wouldn't have had the phrase unfair advantage, but really how you viewed kind of the working world or just the world in general, having almost a disadvantage that actually we can blend into a point, but then we can't blend in after that.
Yeah, there's a disadvantage there, 100%. And that was something that came up for me. But it's also an advantage. My dad was actually, this is something that I haven't spoken about, but they used to call him the guru at work. And they used to really respect him. So if they used to swear in front of him, they used to apologize.
So your dad was a data scientist, right?
No, he was
a data engineer?
Yeah, close enough. He was a database administrator, data architecture or something.
Yeah.
So my dad, so they actually respected him more because he had this like kind of integrity and this kind of respect ability that they used to really like about him, because he was just a very high integrity man. But I'll tell you where it affected me, because at one point he was working for a bank and it was in a holiday. It was like between Christmas and New Year's. So you know that time when no one's taking work too seriously. And I went into the office and I was quite young. I was still, I think, early years of uni. And I went in and I spoke to some people and they're like, yes, I think the stockbroker or the investment banker kind of floor. And they were like, yeah, are you like your dad? In the sense of like, kind of religious conservative background. I was like, yeah, I guess do you party? Do you drink? I was like, no. And I was like, interesting. So that was part of the whole thing of me saying like, oh yeah, they talk about clients and steaks and wine.
Yeah.
It was like, there's a barrier there. I can't go there. That's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
That's not for my life. So I think that was the thing that was like, where I realized, okay, I need to do something different. It was very much growing up with that kind of, but it wasn't a victim thing. It was just like, that's life. That was how my dad saw it. That's how I saw it. It wasn't a case of like going, oh my God, why is life like this? Why is this happening? It's like, no, we're here in London.
Yeah.
We're here in the UK. And that's kind of what we'd expect.
If anything, that helps you firm up your opinion that you didn't really want to do this anyway. So actually it's just kind of proved why you wouldn't want to go into that kind of environment as well. Yeah. It's so important now. And I don't think we had this growing up as kids. For us as kids, we only had 2 or 3 career options and that was it. Because our parents didn't know any better. They just wanted security and safety for us.
Exactly.
And I feel like I see like my younger cousins now and obviously younger kids now, with especially in the South Asian community, and I think it's the same in the Iraqi community as well, that there's just so much more opportunity out there. There's just so much more that people can do and kids can aspire to than just doctor, engineer, accountant, lawyer, and economist.
That wasn't an option, trust me. Economist is like...
Was that an option? No.
The doctor or engineer.
What was the reaction? Like, I'll do economy. Did you do med school? Did you get into medicine?
So I did biomed.
Oh, okay.
Because I was going to do medicine after.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the work experience in the UK, because I didn't have the guidance. I just didn't know. I wasn't sure that I wanted to do medicine.
So did you do biomed?
So I did a year of it only. Less than a year. And I dropped out.
If you could take pressure off people in one sentence when it comes to careers and success, what do you think that would be?
Take pressure off people. I think you have to be constantly leveling up. So that sounds pressure, but I think here's what I mean. If you're constantly adapting, if you constantly have the mindset of learning, okay, there's new tools, there's AI is coming in, there's this and that. If you just have the mindset of curiosity and figuring it out, you'll be fine. I mean, in that sense, don't worry too much about the specifics. If you play with it, if you're curious about it, you're ahead of the curve. You're so far ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
So if you're not currently doing that, I really encourage you to really play around with it. Keep up to date on the latest developments with it. Stay ahead of the curve a little bit. And that doesn't mean a lot. That could mean 5 minutes of updates or reading about it for 5 minutes every day, just to hear, oh, Claude has now released this co-work thing where it can do these features. Oh, interesting. Let me play with that. So I think you have to approach it from curious, playful thing of like, how can I use this in my work? What can this mean? And not in a worried way. Honestly, I wouldn't worry if you have that mindset of leveling up, if you have that mindset of adaptability.
Adaptability, I was going to say.
That's the key word. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, that's almost the end of the questions. I'm going to go into the rapid fire round now.
Sure.
It's a little bit of a fun one. So I'm going to ask you questions, quick replies, don't think too much.
Okay, ready.
Ready? Okay. And I'm sorry my accents, if I don't pronounce the words right. Dolma versus biryani.
Oh, biryani actually.
Yeah.
Biryani, but there is also Iraqi biryani, but I'm actually choosing the Pakistani biryani.
Yeah. Oh, okay, fine. Iraqi biryani, I don't think I have that.
But I do love dolma, but it's not one of my favorites, just personally.
Yeah.
But dolma's great, and like respect to dolma, but like biryani, Pakistani biryani is amazing.
Iraqi chai versus English breakfast.
Oh, definitely Iraqi chai.
Bamia versus tapsi.
Ooh, tepsi.
Masroof versus fish and chips.
Okay, this is going to get me in trouble. No, honestly, I think growing up here, because masgoof wasn't available, it was like fish and chips.
Yeah.
But how I feel after having...
Masgoof is like elite fish. Like we were in an Iraqi restaurant
Yeah.
last week, 2 weeks ago, and we were watching how they were making the masqouf in this like massive, I was like, oh my God, this is so fancy.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not like
no.
our fish and chips,
It's a lot of work.
It's
It's a lot of work, masgoof, but it's
Yeah.
specific to the river fish. So it's freshwater fish in Iraq that they do it with, which is why it's very expensive to get here.
Yeah.
And it's not something, but look, so I grew up having, the comfort food was fish and chips. It wasn't masgoof, because masgoof you don't really have at home.
So which one did you pick?
I picked masgoof, but...
Hassan's meant to be rapid fire.
Oh yes, rapid fire. I picked masgoof.
Masgoof, yeah?
Yeah, because you feel better after.
Yeah, and it's healthier as well.
That's the thing.
Dasha versus suit.
Oh, dishdasha versus a suit. Being Iraqi from Baghdad means that we don't really wear dishdashas much.
What do you guys wear?
It's westernized.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but I do prefer a dishdasha. It's so much more comfortable.
Were you that kid that would wear a suit to the airport? Did your parents make you wear a suit?
Oh, interesting. No, we didn't do. I know what you mean. No, we didn't do that.
So you look more respectable.
But the older generation did.
Yeah.
But I didn't have suits as a kid.
No.
I think they're expensive for a kid to have a suit.
Yeah,
Grow out of them so quick.
Yeah.
For a boy.
Edgware Road versus Southall.
Edgware Road.
Arsenal versus Spurs.
I'd have to say Arsenal.
Do you support Arsenal?
No, but if I had to pick from those two.
The Flight Club versus Office Space.
Office Space, because Fight Club's depressing.
Yeah. Screen time to save your sanity versus elite parenting through the chaos.
Parenting through the mess.
Oh, wow.
But sometimes you get tempted.
Fine. Peppa Pig versus Miss Rachel.
Oh, definitely Ms. Rachel. Peppa Pig's awful.
No.
Yeah, no, it's really bad influence.
Building in public versus building in private.
I like public.
Working on your unfair advantage versus trying to fix your weakness.
For work, unfair advantage. For relationships, weakness. So, sorry, I have to hedge it because it's important.
Hustle culture versus sustainable pace.
Sustainable pace.
Being an expert in one thing versus being decent at many things.
Being decent at many things.
Lucky or strategic?
Strategic.
Amazing. And if I can leave you with one question at the end, so this you can answer as a question, not as a rapid fire, which you've actually answered as questions. So you've got 2 young kids, and if they were to turn around and ask you about success 20 years later, what would you want to tell them? That what did Baba do?
Oh,
led
about
him to be
mine?
successful, your success, yeah.
What do I want to tell them about my success? That I don't take credit for it.
Yeah.
That it's a tawfiq. It's something that comes from, it's a divine privilege which comes from the intersection of being ready and getting lucky and opportunities. It's that kind of intersection there.
That's such a beautiful way to say it. Thank you so much, Hasan.
Thank you so much
so
for having me.
wonderful speaking to you.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable, I'd be so grateful if you could share it and subscribe to our channel. It genuinely helps us to keep bringing stories like this. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.